Would you rather be overrun by ferrets or overrun by tariffs?
This tariffs.
Okay.
I hate ferrets. They're Welcome to The Gathering Greenhouse, a podcast to help us grow together. I'm John.
I'm David.
I'm Rebecca.
And we are...
The three amigos?
Not informed about what we're supposed to say next.
There isn't anything next after that, but I always feel like there should be. Like, it just feels like...
You guys always do the pump you up.
Well,
Steve,
yeah.
but-
Yeah. I mean... Usually when you list things in three, then you want to flow into something else. And we never do. We're just like, I'm Steve, I'm David, I'm John.
And then Steve goes, well, I've got a fun game for us today or something. And
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of fun,
I thought about trying to do a Steve voice and I
Couldn't do it.
it was going to be bad and offensive.
no one can
yeah.
enunciate like Steve.
Enunciate?
Perfect diction, like the way he talks.
That's funny.
Yeah, he's got a good voice.
You know what's funny is that enunciate is a difficult word to enunciate.
Yeah.
I'm dying over retaliatory. All the journalists trying to say retaliatory.
I need to watch the shows you watch.
The news. Retaliatory.
Is that a big
tariffs.
word right now?
Oh, yeah.
Apparently.
Oh, the tariffs.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. Did you know that tariff backwards is ferret?
We do now.
I hate ferrets.
Why?
They're the grossest animal.
But they take care of the snakes.
They hiss. Like
What?
they're not.
They're
they
not good
stink.
pets.
Wasn't Ricky Tikki Taffy a ferret? You have no idea what I'm talking about. Do you know?
The only way I know that is because they talk about it in Legends of the Fall, which I think is an amazing movie. That's the only way
They
I know
talk
it.
about Ricky Tikki Taffy
Yeah,
in
Ricky
Legends of
Tikki
the
Tavi.
Fall?
They read it, a story. Remember? They're sitting around the fire.
Is that... wait, is that the Brad Pitt movie?
Yeah.
Is that
Ricky
the one where he
Tikki
gets
Tavi.
eaten by a bear at the end?
I don't know if it eats them. They don't go that far.
He turns like
That's
he
horrifying.
merges with the bear at the end, doesn't he?
Something
Tristan,
like that. There's some kind of
Brad Pitt's
spiritual bear
character.
thing that happens.
So thanks
but
for joining us on the Gathering Greenhouse.
on the
This is Gen X
Generation
Day.
X. Yeah, yeah.
Take that, you millennial.
Ricky Tikki Tavi.
Is that what they serve you at the old folks home?
Yeah.
Ricky
with,
Tikki
our,
Taffy.
with our pudding.
With your pudding.
Yeah. So
I want some
Jamaica,
pudding.
I don't know if this is still true, but 30 years ago when I was a youth pastor and took a couple mission trips there, was overrun by ferrets because they had a snake problem. And so to get rid of the snakes, they brought in a bunch of ferrets.
Wow.
But they didn't manage their growth, and so they had ferrets everywhere. So
I think I'd rather have snakes. What about?
would you rather be overrun by ferrets or overrun by tariffs?
This tariffs.
Okay.
I hate ferrets. Okay, my neighbor growing up, it's really funny you said Jamaica because they were missionaries in the Caribbean before they moved back to.
It's all coming
but
together.
They had ferrets.
They probably got them from
They might
Jamaica.
have got 'em from Jamaica. But one of the ferrets was like paralyzed from like the mid back down, so it just dragged itself, and it had the biggest like yeah.
Why didn't they get a cart
back
for
end.
it?
Because it's a ferret. It's not worth it. It's a rodent. But this thing would just like literally slither around the house, just dragging itself with his big old booty. And just, yeah.
Can't do it.
I can't get over that image. And then they also peed everywhere. And I just, ferrets are, ever since that, being around that, I just, no.
They already stink. You know, they
Yeah. Did you ever have
must.
guinea pigs?
I never had guinea pigs, but
We had guinea pigs before we had kids. Yeah.
Ezra really wants a guinea pig.
You mothered the guinea pigs?
No, but we had them. I mean, it was just like
I thought you still had guinea pigs.
so. What?
What are those two pets you keep bringing around?
Miley and Roscoe.
Yeah.
Oh, they're cute.
Yeah. So we when we first got married, we lived in an apartment, and so we couldn't have a dog. Mary Ann loves dogs, so we got guinea pigs.
So we got the next best thing.
Yeah.
Guinea pig.
So we actually we let them out of their cages sometimes during when we were both home and let them run around.
So that's my biggest fear. Ezra really wants a guinea pig or a hamster. And my biggest fear is he's going to let it out, and I'm going to step on it, and
That's a good
Then you're
possibility.
the guinea pig
and
killer.
I'm the guinea pig. Yeah,
that
I
wouldn't
just
be good.
Emma had a hamster for a while, and it got out, and then you couldn't find it. And like it was like weeks later, I found it in the couch in the basement. It was still alive.
Really?
Yeah.
Wonder what it was eating.
I don't know.
my I'm not going to tell you who, but somebody I know very close. They were into birds, and then the kids fell in love with this one bird that they had, and they left it out of the thing, and he he stomped it. So, and
this is a terrible podcast.
it's a horrible podcast, but
so it's too late to say this now. But parents, this is not PG. This is not for your kids. We've got the pastor for kids here, but this is not for kids.
Shameful.
no, I think this is just, those are great opportunities for your kids to learn about death and the harsh realities of existing in this cold world.
I don't remember what sermon it was in yesterday, but I actually at one point I was talking about Joseph and his family, and I wanted to transition to the idea that they become this big great nation. And without thinking, I just said, and they all died. And then I was like, that came out a little harsher than I meant for it to.
You're
But
like,
they did.
they really did. They really died.
Everybody dies. We don't shy away from the truth. It's a hard truth, but yeah. Speaking of dead and old.
This is cheerful.
All right, so we're gonna do a Mount Rushmore today.
Let's do it.
Because that's my thing. I like to do Mount Rushmore.
Mount Rushmore.
Maybe this is just the thing we do for the next season.
I really love lists, and I just think I was thinking about this today.
Did you make a list about all the reasons you love lists?
Well, no, I did make a list in my mind.
Did he do that?
I was thinking about when you're preaching, and you have a teaching point that you want to make, how you explain that teaching point. And I was thinking through, there's different ways you do it. One is with a list. One is with a Venn diagram. Well, you may not use that expression, a Venn diagram. You show how different things come together, right? One is with what you might call a spectrum, right? Where it's like it's more of this, less of this, that kind of thing. And I was thinking in my mind, what I'm actually doing as I'm driving is I'm making a list of all these visual ways that you can explain a point that you're making. And then at that point, I got to the office, and I was done thinking. And that was the end of it. But that was my list I made this morning in the car. I used to be able to make much longer lists because my commute was a lot longer. It's much shorter now.
I have time to make a list on my commute for sure.
There you go. So, all right. So Mount Rushmore.
Great place.
I don't know if this is going to work.
Okay.
So if it doesn't, I've got to back up. We're going to make a Mount Rushmore of biblical events that line up with historical events.
Ooh, okay.
All right. And I don't even know if we can come up with 4, but I've got a couple in my mind. So maybe we've got to work on this collaboratively. So for example, I'll give one for example that I actually think belongs on the Mount Rushmore is Herod in Acts. And I think it's the 3rd Herod of the Bible. He's at Caesarea Philippi, and he gets up in front of everybody, and he speaks so eloquently that everybody's like, oh, he's a god. And he accepts their praise, and then he dies. Like just conks over dead. Right? But the historical records outside of the Bible, so other people who write about it, talk about this Herod, that he died very suddenly. And the biblical record says he was eaten by worms.
Yeah.
But the historical record actually says he had like some kind of intestinal worms. That is why he died. So fascinating thing where the Bible and
lines
history
up with,
kind of. So what are some other ones that maybe?
Ooh.
This is hard without thinking about it.
I mean, I've written like 6 Easter archaeologies now.
Right.
But they're more like, here's a thing we found.
Well, those work. That works. Archaeology is the same as history.
The one we're talking about this week, this doesn't make the Mount Rushmore. It's Jesus though, actually on the earth. So like, how do you pick one? How do you pick one of those?
You got like you can say it's just the crucifixion,
like the garden tomb or the crucifixion. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the poking with the spear and the water coming out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's actually a lot about the crucifixion that you can when you start to talk through like historical how crucifixions happened. And I hinted at this like I think a week ago. The whole he was crushed. Yeah. That the crushing of the lungs and he was pierced the spear, which was not normal.
Yeah.
Right. But then you got the Psalm that talks about all of his bones are unbroken, which is again abnormal historically. They would have broken his legs. I think that's a good one. All right, we got John. You're slacking.
So
I took the easy one.
Controversial take: the flood.
Ooh. And, I think it's a good one.
I think there's a lot of evidence, outside of just the Bible to suggest a global catastrophe, such as a flood, about the same time they think it might have happened. So,
right.
And there's like the sediment.
Yeah.
There's like evidence in there.
I think one of the most interesting things is some of the mixed up fossil records,
right.
which, how does that happen without things getting, some upheaval or something?
Yeah. Like a dinosaur in Alberta, Canada, chewing on a fern.
That was from Africa or something.
Yeah. That's awesome stuff. Yeah. I think it's a good one. So one of my all-time favorites. Oh, go ahead.
No. Go
I'm
ahead.
not going to lose this, so go ahead.
Wasn't it, who went to India?
Alexander the Great?
No, the...
Thomas?
I can't remember.
Thomas. I think there's some really interesting things about like that isn't in our Western Christianity. There's like several, I don't want to call them offshoots, but other traditions and stuff that came from other apostles and other missionaries who went just to different areas than what our tradition came from.
So there was a European explorer. So this would have been like 1500s, 1600s. I can't remember which one it was. I want to say Vasco da Gama, but I don't think that's right. There was a European explorer who made his way to India. So he went down around Africa up to India, thinking he was bringing Christianity to the heathens, and was shocked when he got to India to discover there were already Christians there.
It was already there, yeah.
Yes, and they actually did trace their roots back to Thomas. So that's a good one.
And now look at India.
Well, India is one of the fastest, has one of the fastest growing church. I think it's India and like maybe South Korea still. South Korea for a while was one of the fastest growing.
Yeah, I mean,
churches.
the perseverance, it's incredible. Like that still little seed is still there and still struggling, Well, now it's struggling because now illegal, Christianity is a fun thing.
Yeah. I think British colonialism set back Christianity in India for a long time. Sure. But then once they freed themselves of that, you got, the church starts to, the true church
out of
starts
that,
to
you got
grow
one
again.
of the most, popular Gandhi quotes. I like your Jesus, I hate his Christians, or hate his followers, or something
Did
like that.
he really say that?
I don't know. It's all I always heard it attributed to him.
Always. People love that quote.
Yeah, but it's like, sure. I can say that about any group of people.
I studied him quite a bit in college, and I don't remember that quote.
Yeah, I think I struggle with Gandhi a little bit because I see the effectiveness of like the protests and all that stuff, but then that second layer of research into Gandhi ruined the guy for me. Like just.
So we could really blow things up here and ask the question: is Gandhi in heaven?
Ooh.
Nobody likes to answer this question.
No.
I mean,
you vote no. Not that our vote matters. We don't vote people in or out.
What's the fifth? I decline to answer that question. What is it?
Well, you don't want to self-incriminate yourself.
No, I don't ever like to answer that question
because that's not our place. And I 100% agree. It's not our place to judge whether someone is in or out. That's God's rule. But theologically, from what I know, and there's a lot that I don't know, but theologically, from what I know, I would say probably not.
Yeah, I think you're even saying. I say
it's a sad truth, but
I don't know the condition of his heart. I don't know if he had a come to Jesus moment. I don't know that, but based on the information I do have, I don't know that there was any evidence of a gospel-centered transformation or
any submission to Christ.
I've never heard. And typically, when somebody has that, you know about it.
Yeah. Now that said, obviously he's a guy who studied Jesus.
Right.
He would have studied. So is it possible that as he was dying, that he wrestled through that and came to a realization? Absolutely. I actually think there are more people who give themselves to Jesus at the end than we know. I think there are.
I agree. That's why I don't like to answer the,
and that's
you never
where,
know.
Even you hear some of these stories of people who have done just horrible things. They're on death row. And then it's like, well, then they turn to Jesus on death row. And there's a part of you that just like, that's not fair, right?
Right.
And that's not how it's supposed to work. But God loves them too, and He made them too, and He can forgive them too. There's one of my favorite parables. Basically they need help in the field, so they hire a bunch of people in the morning, and they say, we're going to pay you, I don't remember what it is, but $100.
Yeah.
And then they need more help at noon. They hire people $100, and then the last hour, those guys who only worked an hour got paid the same.
Yep.
And it's like, you can be upset that you had to work all day for that same thing, or it was harder for you because you had to endure longer. You didn't get to live the way of the world and enjoy the things of the world because you have followed Jesus earlier. Or you can just be excited that more people are benefiting and enjoying the reward of that. And I think that one of those things where I have to sometimes check myself, is like, because I came to Christ younger in my life, and there have been times where I'm like, I have friends who are getting to go do things that I am not allowed to do because I want to follow Jesus, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's this part of you that goes, man, wouldn't it just be a little bit fun? Yeah. To, and it's like that's such a wrong way of looking at it.
Well, I think like when I think of had that kind of thought, I think I could just kind of hear Jesus going, but none of y'all are good though. Yeah. None of you are good. Only I'm good. Yeah. I'm like, you're right. None of us are good. Do you know? Yeah. Once that hits you, you're like, okay, Jesus, like, I get it.
And understanding too the how eternally ungood you are, right? Like how, and it doesn't matter what the thing was, that sin, regardless of how big the worldly consequence is or how small it may be, that sin eternally separated you from God, and it required a equally significant sacrifice.
Yes. Right. The price is the same. Can we go back to Gandhi for a minute? Yeah. Like, so I think Gandhi, like, he's one of speaking of no one's good, but I think he's just one of those people to me that God kind of used that didn't submit to him, but God did a work through him because he informed like MLK and like all those philosophers that came after him,
And I think that's one of the awesome things too with talking about the historical significance of this is like even guys like Nebuchadnezzar, horrible, wicked human being, God used him. And how does that fit with?
Well, let me just take this one step further. Better chance that Nebuchadnezzar's in heaven than Gandhi, I think. Theologically speaking,
because there are places where Nebuchadnezzar acknowledges God as Lord.
There's at least a point in his life where there's a confession.
Yeah. Right. I've actually always wondered about that.
He's had, that's a more direct contact than most people.
Yeah. So Nebuchadnezzar and Cyrus, two people I'm super curious about. Right. I can't wait to get to heaven so I get that question answered. Right.
I find that
mine's the Ark of the Covenant. But where is it? But go ahead.
It's in a warehouse in Washington.
I saw that report and I was so excited. And I was like, they didn't.
I love this whole...
Elon.
I'm all for, like, more transparency, better in general, right? And look into the government. But do we really trust the government to be honest about auditing the government?
No.
That's just...
I would be mad, though, if it's sitting at the Smithsonian in the basement.
We're going to get the JFK files. Sure we are.
Sure we are.
Oh, they're telling us if they're aliens or not. Yep, I bet they are.
The government will always tell you what it wants you to know so it can control you.
Yep.
Oh, there's a question we should hit on. I get this one a lot. How do we know there's no life on other planets? People like to talk about that.
Like, are we talking like from a theological perspective?
Yeah, like, with the Bible doesn't say anything about, but it also doesn't say there's no life on other planets.
Our friends in Utah would have an answer for you on that.
So I tend to say, like, I don't have any evidence to me to believe that there is. I know what I know, and I know what I experience, I know what I see, and I know what I've been entrusted with, right? And if, for some reason, outside of that, God has done something somewhere else too, I don't think that changes, what he has called us to do and the information he's given us and the framework in which he has created us to exist.
Yeah.
And so people often like, if they discover life, doesn't that just destroy your faith? I'm like, I don't think so. Because I do, God can do whatever he wants. If he wants to put people on some galaxy, okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that works.
The way I think about it is this is usually what I say when I get this question, is why is it so hard to fathom that God might have put all these celestial objects in the sky just for us?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, there's nobody close to us that we've ever, known of. And I think, well, what's so crazy about that? God is an amazing God, and he's a generous God, and he's the God who created us to reflect his image. Yeah. Well, and so why wouldn't he show us who he is?
We're actually told the skies themselves, the stars declare the glory of God.
Right. And so all of creation.
And he is so glorious, past what we can even comprehend. So it's not crazy to say that it requires an infinite universe of shiny objects to even come close to communicating his vastness and his glory.
One that some say is still moving out.
It has to. It's an ever expanding. Yeah,
that's amazing. Yeah. Like that's the good
this
stuff.
Stuff's all so much over my head.
So whatever.
But I do have a couple thoughts on it.
Shorter than
it's because of stars. You mean like are you making a pun?
No,
star over my head.
No, I just
that was good.
You guys, science is not my thing, but. So in one sense, this isn't science, it's philosophy. I would say this. I think the Christian worldview leaves a greater possibility of life on other planets than the atheistic worldview. Yeah. Because if we really are the result of this random process, there's...
How does that happen twice?
Right. Yeah. Come on now.
Once is a stretch.
The big bang.
I can't believe once. I'm going to believe twice. But that said, my question then would be, okay, so let's just say God did create life somewhere else and just didn't tell us about it, which that's his prerogative. He can do that.
He's God, yeah.
But is that life elsewhere under the same redemptive plan as our life? Are those beings, whoever they are, wherever they are they capable of sin, not capable of sin? Do they have the same...
They have free will.
Right. I mean, there's so many questions it raises.
You have to get into the question of, like, let's say they didn't sin. They're Adam broke.
Right.
Are they there? I don't think, now, if you're telling me they're people, like humans, like we're humans and somewhere else, maybe. But if it's a totally different species and,
like angels are not the same as humans.
Yeah.
All right. I can. What about this one? What if they are actually from Earth? Like, no. What if they're the ones that built the pyramids and they were so technologically advanced they figured out a way to get off the planet, and so they actually are descendants of Adam and Eve. But
what if it is Adam and Eve and we're the garden is another planet?
So is this one of our? Is this going Mount Rushmore then?
I was going to say the
aliens who left.
I quit if we're going to do all that.
That's awesome.
All right, here's my favorite. This is my favorite historical, and we'll touch on this later this year when we get to Esther. I've never preached through Esther. I've taught through it in other places, and I've done like camps and retreats. I've been through Esther. It's one of my least favorite popular books because I think we get it so wrong when we talk about Esther, because I actually think it's about the sovereignty of God. Mm-hmm. That said, I love the historical connection between the story of Esther and the Spartans at Thermopylae. I love that. Yep. That King Xerxes, he leaves, and so between I think it's chapter 1 and the rest of the book is he loses to 300 Spartans. Well, he beats them, but they end up being the ones that beat him. So that's my all-time favorite.
Is this the thing with the crack? Like there's a crack in the rock and the other army can't get through.
Yes.
So you take them all. That thing. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So 300 Spartans held off the greatest army in the world until they were betrayed.
Yeah.
But they did it. It was long enough for the rest of the Greeks to unite behind them, and for there to be a sea battle, which the Greeks also won. There's a lot there in that. None of this is in the Bible. But God's hand is so clearly on it, in that battle actually is paving the way for the coming of Christ, which that's mind-blowing.
That's where it gets crazy.
If the Greeks don't win, right? If they get overrun by the Persians, you don't get the Romans. Yep. And you don't get the Romans, you don't get this world empire, the Pax Romana, where you have peace for all time, where the gospel can spread on Romans road. Crazy stuff.
You get the closest thing we've ever had to a universal language since Babel, which is Greek. You don't get that in the world, which is what allowed the gospel to travel as fast as it did. So, I mean, there's a lot there.
Yep. So, all right. So, did we decide on our Mount Rushmore? We haven't really. I mean, we've kind of.
So what's really cool is there's just so much. There's actually a lot of historical evidence that ties in with stuff, and it's like even that's an example of parallel historical events that give us a framework of when these things are happening.
Yeah.
With each other, I think is really, it's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you have everything from even understanding today that like you can go to Babylon, and see Babylon, and this is where these stories actually happen, and they found the ruins. It's just outside, I think, Baghdad, and I mean that's where this happened. That's where Daniel was. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, there's a big question out there for historians, archaeologists that they're wrestling with. They can't figure it out. That something happened, and I can't remember the exact years where they think it happened. Something happened that came and wiped out this somewhat advanced Canaanite society. Like there were these Canaanites living in the land of Canaan, and then all of a sudden they were gone.
It's almost like
Yeah, I love it. I'm like, I have a suggestion
a series
for
of
you.
Battles happened, and
I have a suggestion, but
They're like, it was an asteroid. You're like, okay, it was an asteroid.
yeah,
Sure it was.
yeah. So, but all of this leads us to a big event.
Yeah, it's my favorite.
Coming at the gathering this Sunday.
Well, it's gonna be the 13th.
That's
the
this
Sunday.
Sunday.
Y'all help me with like math because I don't know when the thing airs. But
and it's called.
I'm aware. It's called Easter archaeology.
And what is it?
So Easter archaeology is it's evolved, over the years, but now what I'm trying to accomplish and my team is trying to accomplish is we're trying to show kids actual sites where Jesus actually was, with the overriding idea of Jesus was a real person in a real place. He really was a real human who came in, and also God, of course, that came down. Yeah. So this year, speaking of archaeology, we're hitting on the Praetorium, which would have been Herod's castle. And poor Jesus goes to Pilate, to Herod, back to Pilate. And so one archaeologist thinks he knows where this site was in the wall in Jerusalem, and it makes a bunch of sense. Like that dude might. So Rebecca Oldenburg, I need to get like an Indiana Jones hat and wear it around because I become
mine today.
I should have. I have one, but I didn't bring it. Anyway, I go and research these things so I can at least give a credible. Like I've looked at it. I think this guy's legit. And we preface everything we say with may. It may have been the site, but the Praetorium was pretty compelling. The site where Herod was sat on his judgment seat, not to nerd out on y'all. The stone pavement. Remember that very specific mention of the stone pavement? It's still there. It's crazy.
And most of this is in Luke.
Well, it's
mixed a little bit.
Yeah, it's in there. It's sprinkled through. I think where I landed was John, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, because I wanted to talk about that stone pavement because it's still there.
Yep.
And I think it's hard to narrow down which text you want to use. But I usually end up using half of one and half the other.
So this is when the night before he dies, Jesus is taken to Pilate.
Yep.
And Pilate is trying to get out of it.
Yes, he doesn't want to deal.
I was actually reading someone the other day who said they think Pilate is in heaven, which is fascinating. I think there's a strong argument that his wife is, right? There's a strong argument that his wife was one of the early followers of Jesus. But their argument is that they think that Pilate eventually, before the end of his life, became a believer in Christ. But at the before the crucifixion, Pilate does not want to condemn Jesus. So he's really got this wrestling going on. I don't think he's guilty, and he finally is like, I'm gonna pass the buck to Herod. Yep. So he sends him to Herod, and now you're showing them, hey guys, this is the place where Jesus stood. His actual physical feet touched this pavement.
Yes.
So cool.
That's still sort of there.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And you can still see the stairs and the
right.
The seaward is
yeah. Yeah.
There's even the pole, I know I'm nerding out, but there's even this pole, this round thing that would have held the pole to Pilate's tent. Mm-hmm. It's still just sitting there.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And so that's what we're doing. We're going to talk too about focusing on how Jesus was silent during the whole time. I think I pulled all the pastors, said, what do you think about the silence? What does that say to you, Mm-hmm. But that's saying I'm a sacrifice. I know it. I got to do it. I'm going to do it. Yeah. I'm not even going to defend myself. Me, who could knock this whole place down, is not going to defend myself.
Yeah. Because of course he had somewhere he needed to go.
He had a job to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We actually talked about that in the morning Bible study today, that one of the cool things in John 11, right before he goes to Lazarus to raise Lazarus from the dead. And his disciples are like, if you go to Judea, Jesus, they're going to kill you. He's like, that's not exactly what he said, but he said, as long as it's day, we got to work in the day, not at night. But essentially what he was saying was they can't hurt me until the time.
Yeah.
Right. This time is determined, and until then, they can't hurt me.
Yeah.
But, then the other side of that is he knew the time was coming. Mm-hmm. And you watch him as he gets closer and closer to that, he just more and more resolute. And as he goes through that night and all these accusations are made, at any point, Jesus is a pretty smart guy. He could have talked his way out of that.
Yeah.
Right? He could have made a case and been like, well, here's this, and this. You got to let me go. And they would have been bound by their law to do it. But he stays silent because he's got a job.
Intellectually superior, but keeps his mouth shut.
Just stay silent. He doubled down. Right.
It's
like you're claiming to be God. He could have been like, "Oh no, I never said that."
He's like,
"Oh yeah, goes, I am."
Yeah. Oh God.
You said it.
You said it. Yeah. And it's and even the way he said that just shows he was so in control of. Yeah. I think sometimes we think Jesus on earth. We sometimes do forget that he is still divine. He is still God over all this, and it's not just like he's powerful enough to. It's not just that he was powerful. He was in that moment still over the whole thing.
Right.
And, just so even in that, just the way the wordplay plays out, it's not just that he's smarter. He's got the work in every angle. He's got it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you think about Jesus and like we talk about apologetics. Like he is apologetics. You know what I mean? Like he is. Yeah. Like he doesn't need our help. I wish he would sometimes I'm like, make that easier to understand, Jesus, because that's pretty tough. That's a tough
he's
one.
like, no.
Yeah. You figure it out.
We'll do it this way.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's fascinating, though, is this idea of a self-controlled God.
Yeah.
Because in most of civilizations and cultures, that's not an attribute of their gods. Most of them, the gods are vengeful, capricious, vindictive, right? Yeah. I mean, it's just like this idea of a self-controlled God is pretty fascinating.
And it is the only way by which a God might be sovereign. Because if he is not self-controlled, he is ruled by something else.
Right.
And so you have like all these Greek gods and even like, especially like the Norse mythology, they are so ruled by emotion and anger and pride and that's actually what's in charge. Yeah. And,
spicy little Vikings over there.
Which rule us.
Did you hear about the time when Thor, speaking of the Norse gods, was out all day riding his horse? Like everywhere he went, just riding, and he was just having a blast. And he got very full of himself as he's riding. And as he's riding, he shouts out, "I am Thor!" And his horse said back to him, "That's because you forgot the saddle, silly."
I didn't know we were being set up for a joke there.
Thank you guys for watching the podcast today.
Is that Thor played by Mike Tyson?
Poor Mike Tyson.
That's because you forgot the saddle, silly.
If he shows up, he's gonna beat you down, right? He might be 50.
Did you see his fight against Jake Paul?
Oh, it
the
was
one
sad.
he threw?
Yeah, I think
couldn't watch.
He threw it too.
This is not.
I think he could have won that. That's not what we're here for.
You watched it?
We got back to Easter archaeology.
Easter archaeology.
How do we sign up?
So you can go on Church Center on your app on your phone, and you can sign up on there. It's easy.
All right. And if you don't like to do apps on your phone, you can go to the church website.
Yeah, and you can find it on
there. Which is thegatheringdayton.com
or the gathering.
thegathering.church. The Gathering Church or just
do
thegatheringdayton.com. Go to events, find it there. Yeah.
I just realized we missed a huge opportunity with groundbreaking this Sunday in Easter archaeology this week. Is we should have just given the kids a bunch of shovels.
Let them go dig outside.
We could have saved a ton of money.
We don't need that grass out there anyway.
Yeah. Do you want some spoons that are shaped like shovels for Easter archaeology?
I love those spoons that were shaped like shovels.
That was fun.
I thought it was just going to be like little, I wish I brought it, little like plastic shape, they were like metallic.
They're metal.
They're like forks.
They're metal.
Yeah.
They were heavy
all the
duty.
random things.
I think you could use them in a sandbox.
I actually broke ground with it yesterday. I went out and...
All right. So sign up for, you got kids.
Yep.
Sign up for Easter archaeology this Sunday right after church. Is that right?
No, this one is for 4-year-olds, by the way, up to 5th graders. Okay. That's our age group. And then, so the times are 3:30 to 5:30. We are going to give them a snack in there, something to eat, because we know it's close to dinner time. Yeah. And it'll be fun. There's going to be a giant map. It's going to be like an interactive game. There's going to be, so I don't tell the kids, but it's going to be a little egg hunt in there too.
Nice.
Which would be fun. We're doing some resurrection eggs this time. And, we're just having a bunch of fun to craft. It's going to be good. Good day.
All right. So that's this Sunday afternoon.
Yes. Yep, 3:30 to 5:30.
And they need to sign up if they're going to come?
That would be great because we need to know how many crafts, how much food.
All right.
Yeah.
Good deal. All right.
What's the food?
We're having, I don't want to tell everything.
I'm just trying to decide if I want to be there.
You can do it off camera.
We're having fruit because no one's allergic to that, and then a couple of other fun things.
I'm allergic to fruit and vegetables.
Yeah. Ezra thinks I'm allergic to broccoli because I don't like it.
Well,
that's a bro.
That's a good thing to be allergic to.
But he's not allergic to it, so he likes
good.
it.
Okay. All right. I'm going to try to end this thing.
Yeah, that's good.
So we're supposed to say something like, hey, thanks for watching. Till we see you again, keep it real, keep it rooted. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
So, all right.
See ya.